Tell me the stories of grace. I love to hear things I would want you to tell me while I am here. Scenes of your church life, things you have seen. Stories of grace, share them with me. Oh, let me hear how these walls had shouts of praise. Tell me also of the tears that here have been laid. How has God challenged? How were you restored? Tell me the divine powers coming through these doors. Tell me in accents of wonder how you were formed. Tell how you walked with Jesus, strong and as one. How did the Master ready you to serve? Tell me, Grace Congregational, why you are church.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Midweek Connection and Tell Me the Stories of Grace. I have really enjoyed meeting the people of Grace, and I think you all have enjoyed getting reintroduced to what Grace means to the people that come to Grace. Today, I have with me Dave Hoffenberg, and we're going to share. We're just going to talk. He's going to tell me about himself and how he is connected to Grace Congregational Church, United Church of Christ. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Alberta.
I am so glad that you agreed to do this. Now, see, Dave was one of the first people that I met. And of course, Wendy and I love music. So of course, I met Dave at a concert that he came up to me and said, I'm DJ Dave. I'm the deacon at the church. And I was like, how cool is that? I mean, how many people do you meet in church that you meet outside, come up and introduce themselves as DJ Dave, and I'm one of the deacons at the church? I loved it. Just loved it. So, tell me, how long have you been connected with Grace?
So I joined Grace, I think in 2013, 2012, right around there. I joined in April. I came with an old girlfriend, and she had been coming to Grace, and so we came to an Easter service. That was my very first time at Grace, was an Easter service, and you know, everybody knows that everybody raves about the music at Grace, and so back then it was with Rip, who was also is an amazing musical director, and so I came to that service, and it was amazing. I remember the music, but I also remember the service and whatnot, and so I just was interested, I guess. There, I just came when I came. You know, I didn't really have a church in Vermont. I mean, in 2012, I'd still been in Vermont for 15 years, and just would only go to church back home and whatnot. So I came, it was great, and then, you know, it started coming just here and there as far as a, you know, it wasn't a regular thing by any means, but came a time in May and so on. And then we decided to join. So that August, a few months later, I, you know, did the membership class that ironically I now run. So we did a membership class, and John was the minister in charge of the class, and John and I had an instant connection. It was it was based on, he told a story one time of seminary where he had a fellow that didn't really know, he was younger than him, and they talked about Monty Python, The Life of Brian, and they had never seen it. So John was telling the story, and I have a Monty Python song that is, it's like anti-Christmas, but it's anti-Santa. It's just this funny song, but it's a dirty song. And I told John about it, and I didn't know about telling a minister about a song. You and I talked about my mother, and when I told my mother that I shared this song with John, she said, "You didn't share that with the minister." I said, No, I did. And John ended up loving it, playing it for his kids, and it was just this funny story that I actually told one of John's times here. I told it in a sermon. I told the story, but anyway, we just hit it off, and it was just something that definitely, made me, want to come to Grace. Was my connection with John, and the girl I was shortly thereafter no longer with, so I stayed. So that would have been September. I never even attended my membership class because I actually had a wedding in Massachusetts. So I never got to attend that class that, once again, I've attended so many now. So I did, that would have been, I'd say September, I think 2013, but, and then, it was only a year later of coming here pretty regularly that I was asked to be a deacon. And I think it was Glenn, is it Hogan? Yep. She asked me to be a deacon, and I didn't really know, what a deacon was. I asked my mother. My mother's a deacon at her church. I mean, once a deacon, always a deacon, so she's currently, still, but, so it was like one of the proudest, moments for my mother. She would tell the ministers there, and every time I go there, she tells how I'm a minister there. So I accepted to be a deacon, and then was put into the membership and evangelism class. And at the time, John was in that class, so that was a bonus. It was run by somebody else, and after about a month or so, the person had to step down. And so this was very new to me. I mean, meaning that I was only a member of the church for a year, and only a deacon for about a month or two. And I stepped up and I said that I would run the class, and I've run it now ever since. I think this is I think you do 3-year terms, and you're allowed 6 years or something like that. So this is like my sixth year of being a deacon and running that class. And honestly, I know that they say that you should, move around and whatnot, and go to care and compassion and go to worship and sacrament. But if I have a choice, I would stay in membership and evangelism, just because the membership part is bringing new people into the church, which is, I'm good at talking to people and meeting new people and whatnot. And the evangelism part also goes along those lines as well. So being a deacon, I call it being like God's little helper, God's helper behind the scenes, because you're doing a lot of stuff that people don't see. I mean, you're doing the baptisms, and you're doing all that, but then there's just a lot of stuff that you don't do. So, or that people don't know that you do, and that's totally fine. It's not, you're not doing it for the praise and the pat on the back. You're just doing it to.
That's what deacons do.
Right.
Yeah. I find it very interesting that, you connected with Grace on Easter, and knowing that I'm quite sure it was a glorious service, as far as decorations and music and everything, but you remained engaged because of something else. You talked about your relationship with connecting with John, and that's how you remained engaged. So it sounds like to me your spiritual development and spiritual formation here had to do more than just the music piece, because then you became a deacon to serve. Can you share a highlight of how that engagement happened, that you knew that this is what I'm supposed to do here at Grace?
So, and I agree with that one. I agree with that 100%. That the music, granted, every time I come, is just amazing, because we have the fiddlers and we have the steel drum, and it's just amazing. And I love all types of music, so that's great. But the serving part was just as soon as I became a deacon and took over the class, it was as if there was a calling for me to do more. We try to have 2 classes a year, and one year we had 3, and that was amazing. And one time we might have had 5 people, and another time we had a really big class, and I remember like 15 people getting brought into the church. So in a church of this size, bringing 5 people in might not be, some people might not think it's ideal, or you want more or whatever, but it's still people. So the people that I think the continually coming back to being a deacon was being on the committee. I mean, I'll tell you a funny thing, that as soon as Chris Charles, who now lives in Wisconsin, she was running the deacons at the time, and Chris and I also hit it off, and we're still friends to this day, and a lot of Facebook stuff. And she told me by signing up to run the thing that I had to also attend council. And from a time standpoint, being a DJ, nighttime is stuff. I always had stuff on Thursdays and whatnot, so I wasn't psyched that I now, your one Thursday a month is for diaconate, and now a second Thursday a month is for council. So, and for the first beginnings of council, it was just, there's not a lot of stuff that was coming my way, so I was just, I was there. But and then, more and more, it took on a bigger role, I guess, in council. But no, so the diaconate, what kept coming back was the group that I had. So I had, John was in the group, Jill Lane was in the group, Gabby was in the group, Gabby's still in the group, and I think I had the Westfalls. So having that committee was great. The Westfalls came in my next term, but still I had those people. I had Jill and Gabby for the entire time, and that was great. And like I said, I had John. So having him, running these classes with him, alongside him, was great, because it was like not only being what I say God's helper with the diaconate, it's almost like being John's helper. So I think being a deacon, I did more in a church than I've done. I grew up in a UCC, and I told you I did everything. I did youth group, I did confirmation, I did all that stuff. I went every Sunday with my parents, but I didn't, when you leave at 18, there's not a lot that you can do prior. So now I think I do a lot, and I just want to do a lot. I started doing, I was on a worship service committee with Tracy. I've since, I started doing Bible reading, doing scripture readings, and even I could talk 1,000 times at a DJ gig. You still get up there; it's still a different thing, addressing the people and whatnot. And now since then, I've done a whole sermon, which to me is just amazing. So stuff like that to me is just great. My mother absolutely loves it, and I'm not saying I'm doing this for my mother, but just the fact that every time I go to church and she tells somebody that I'm a deacon, or I did this or I did that, those little proud moments are great for her and for me. Yeah.
Well, I hear how your engagement here at Grace, the thrill and the pride and being a part of introducing new people to Grace, leading the class, being involved on council, the leadership portion of church, and also participating in worship. So if you had to, because now the church is in their transition period. Now it's like, what do you think God has for the church now? This is a great time. We're moving from a season in which there were two pastors, John and Tracy Weatherhog, and now we're moving to a season where there will be one pastor. And what else? When you think about the future of Grace, you know what the past has been. What do you see the future for Grace?
I'll be honest that, in the transition, not in the transition, but in the part where we were, moving on from John and Tracy, I had a big issue with it.
Thank you for being honest about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I grew very close to John and very close to Tracy, and they both have their things that they did. And Tracy did a lot in the community, and she still does. I saw her at a food drive. So I thought that I was one of the people that thought that having a one minister church would be very difficult, and the people really need to step up. And then so in August, last August, when I gave the day that I gave my sermon was also the day that was when we were deciding really the big vote, and John and Tracy and all that, and it was tough. I mean, it was just, a lot of people were saying that they would step up, and it was going around in circles, and I had to get up and I knew what John wanted. I knew that it was time to go. So I had to stand up here and, choke back tears and tell people that we just need to vote. It could go on forever. And I knew that he wanted that. So the last year, I stood by Grace because, I'll be honest, if John had, was able to go to a church here in Rutland, I probably would have followed him. But I stood by Grace because I still enjoy what Grace has to offer. I mean, in the interim, we were just doing, substitute ministers, and then Holly came in, and Holly was amazing. Mm-hmm. She really was. I loved Holly. I mean, one of the funniest things with Holly is when she kept throwing Noble Ace Hardware into her talk. The shameless plug, as I call it. That was hilarious to me. And so I think that one of the biggest things in Grace in this process is moving forward. There are some people that thought that maybe with John gone, maybe this person will come back and this person will come back. And Paul, I think it's Sanji, from the UCC, he basically said, you really just want to move forward. And that's what I think Grace is doing. I think they're moving forward, and I think they've moved forward. And I think that, it might take a little bit to, not in a pandemic world, but in a post-pandemic world, it might take a little bit to refill the pews, so to speak.
And how would that happen? I mean, how do if you're a membership in evangelism, what's the outreach that will let people, how does that happen? Of course, the music has always been the forefront at Grace, but you connected not because of the music, you got engaged because of the ministry and the service. So it's one thing to connect people, but how do you keep them engaged? Because you stayed engaged. So what would be a plan to do that? Not only to just fill, these seats, but to keep people engaged, to be a part of the ministry, and to be a part of serving and doing God's work. How about that?
I think that, one thing I'll say that in the past, year or whatever it's been, we haven't been able to have a membership class because you can't bring people in to a church with no minister. And now that you're here, and I really, I've already told you this, we've had great talks, and I think you're a great welcome to Grace. I think you're going to be a great part of Grace. I know it's an interim position, but you're going to be here for a good bit. So I look forward to. I wish I could have been at the last diaconate, but I was still traveling at the time. So, next diaconate, November, whatever. I hope to get our group assembled with you and really put a plan together to have a membership class and get back into having 2 membership classes. Now, that being said, we usually rely on visitors that are coming here to be our new members. So what it's going to take is I have lists of people that wanted to join in the past that for one reason or another, not necessarily a church reason, but their kids and this thing and soccer. So I still have all those lists, so I want to readdress those people and see if those people will join.
Make contact.
We always say this, we've said this in diaconate, we've said this in membership, that bring a friend to church. That's not as easy as it sounds to just pick one friend. If everybody picked one friend, and only if 5% of them joined, it would be great. But that's not an easy thing, but it's going to take things like that. It's going to take, like I said, we can go back to people that really wanted to join Grace that didn't get to. And then we're just gonna have to get out there and evangelate. I guess that's the word. It's just get the word out there. As far as being engaged, I think getting more people involved, asking. I think we have this is our list of readers. Maybe this could be our list of readers. I'll step down if so and so wants to get up and read, and maybe we have to. And it's tough. We're in a pandemic world where we can't reach as many people, but like that the SOS thing is something that 150% got me interested in doing things in church. So every time that SOS, I'd sit here in church and I'd check off this, and I tried to check off sometimes as much as I could. I didn't know what an acolyte was. I actually checked to do that, and then Tracy said that's actually like little kids. I said, okay, no worries. One time we didn't have an acolyte. I had to step in and do the candle thing and do the flame. But so I just I'm a different animal in the sense that I'm very enthusiastic about a lot of things in life, but just portraying some of that enthusiasm to others. There's people that pop into my head that that I know that said that they would want to get more involved with things and whatnot. So it's just calling upon those people. And one thing that Tracy was good at was getting people, like having I was on the worship committee. It wasn't worship and sacrament, but it was just a different committee, just picking out different things for for different services. A lot of Christmas stuff, a lot of Advent, and all that. But just getting, I think it's just going to take getting more people involved, and people that might not want to be involved, getting them involved, and that's going to be a challenge because you have to. There's people that just want to sit and watch the service, and that's great. They don't have to get involved. But there's some people that sit and watch the service that want to be involved that don't really know.
And they just wait for an invitation.
Exactly, and it's finding those people. So
it's extending the invitation.
Yeah, it's just getting. It's going to take getting the word out there more, and I think we are in a very good place for this. I think between Diane and Alistair and everyone that we have on council, everyone I think is more committed to do that, but it's just going to take reminding.
I think you're right. And anytime there's a change in churches or anything, it's an opportunity. It's the opportunity that God is providing for something new to happen. And I think you have that spirit of something new to happen. And we don't know what that newness is, but it's wonderful that Grace has a person like you that has that infectious enthusiasm, to know that we're looking forward and we're moving ahead, and we continue to do that with God's help. Then we'll be able to be as strong as ever. Nothing was lost. We continue to serve. This church serves greatly inside, taking care of each other, and in the community. And just like you said, you got connected because of service. And sometimes people just waiting to be asked. I'm glad you were asked. You were given an invitation. I'm very glad to have met you and that you were here at Grace. I look forward to seeing what else you're going to do as far as bringing in people and being a part of the outreach. I believe God has planted a lot inside, and you're just waiting for it to come forth. Thank you for coming today.
Yeah, thank you, Alberta. I really do truly believe that there is, something in me that, wants to do this and just thoroughly enjoys Grace as a whole. So anything that I can do to give and get people is what I plan to do.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have again heard another story of grace, and I am very appreciative of that. And you also had a challenge, because I heard Dave said that people are needing to get involved and waiting for invitation. So perhaps we will be more consistent with the spotlight on service so that you can decide and see an opportunity to also not only connect but re-engage with Grace. Thank you. Bye-bye.